Hi, I'm Scott Humphrey, CEO of the World Floor Covering Association, and this is Leadership Live. This week in Leadership by the Letter, we are on the letter J, and the word is jump. Here are a couple of definitions of jump for you. First, to push oneself off a surface and into the air by using the muscles in one's legs and feet. Maybe a common example of what we'd think if we were jumping rope. Let me give you one that's more applicable to a professional, to a business or a professional situation. Jump means to move suddenly and quickly in a given way, in a given direction. Listen, leaders need to be leaders of action. You've heard me talk about this before. When you're stagnant, when you're satisfied, when you're status quo, then your followers tend to look to the person who is more action-oriented. We are drawn as human beings to action. It's just the way we're wired. So when you get to the corner office and you quit leading by example, suddenly your followership goes down dramatically. And when you don't have followers, then you're not a leader. Let me give you an example of the power of jumping and some steps you should take should you choose to do so. I just got back off vacation with my family, and we stayed at a hotel in an island in Hawaii with a cliff off to the left. And the first day when we got there, my son discovered the cliff and noticed there were some people standing up on top. And he said, "Dad, we've got to go jump off the cliff." And I said, "Well, son, you may have to go jump off the cliff. What I have to do is to video you jumping off the cliff," which is what I did on day one. But he was committed to going back on day two, and I wanted to face my fear. And so I agreed to go and jump. Now, my fear was not the jump itself because I'm not afraid of heights. My fear was after I hit the water, because I'm a very bad swimmer, would I be able to get in? Because the tide was naturally pulling you out further into the ocean, and that's a fear of mine. But nevertheless, the next day, I decided to make the jump. And after I made the jump, I realized there are certain steps that I went through that are pertinent to you as you're making the jump in your life, whether it's to a new job, a new relationship, a new responsibility within a church community, whatever it may be. These jumps are vital and important to us as leaders because they force the follower to pay attention to you. You draw them through the jump itself. Step number one. You want to evaluate the situation. So the first thing that we did is we watched to see if other people were also jumping. Listen, just because you're a leader doesn't mean you have to be the first one to do something. You can evaluate what other people have done. And once I saw that other people had jumped and jumped successfully, I was more comfortable allowing my kids to do it on day one and for me to join them on day two. Step two, approach with caution. You don't just suddenly arrive at a cliff. You have to climb the cliff to get to the edge. And so I thought that in itself was treacherous. And I want you, when you're deciding to make a jump, to evaluate everything around you. Is it safe? Be careful. Are there rocks down below that you will be jumping into? The jump has to make sense for you to be willing to do it. Although some of you may say that what I did not make sense. But I checked it off. It's a life list box that I will not have to do again. Step number three. Once you have evaluated the situation and approached with caution, then you have to step to the edge. You actually step to the edge to determine, am I moving forward? Now, at this point, there are three options. You can look back and go back because you've decided this jump is not for me. You can hunker down and stay where you are because you're afraid of moving forward or backward, or you can jump. But before you jump, step four, you've got to know what you do after the jump is successful. If you simply jump out there without thinking through the process or the why behind the jump, then the jump has no value and it will not lead you anywhere so that followers can follow you. Finally, after you have evaluated the situation, approach with caution, step to the edge, and determine what your next steps are, then you make the jump. But don't fool yourself. Once you've made the jump, it's not as if suddenly you're okay. I was floating through the air. We think the cliff was somewhere between 60 and 100 feet. We're not really sure how high it was, but I can tell you that I thought I should be hitting the water, and I was still only about halfway down. So it's common to have fear even after the jump. It will be fear mixed with exhilaration because you've done something. And we always feel better as leaders when we're involved in action. But that's okay. And when you get to the bottom, wherever the bottom may be, then you've already thought through the plan and decided to implement it. Let me give those steps to you again as you focus on jumping. Evaluate the situation, approach with caution, step to the edge, know next steps after the jump, and then jump. Now, before I say my tagline that I say every week, let me go ahead and warn you that next week's Leadership Live you do not want to miss. Just a few hours ago, I got off the phone with a young man named Darren Harrison. His story was on national news last week, and I'm going to share that story with you as we talk about the word judgment, because the judgment that Darren showed not only saved his life, but saved the life of 2 other people. Darren is in the flooring industry, so I think you'll really enjoy this story. So be back with us. But for this week, evaluate the situation, approach with caution, step to the edge, know the next steps, and make the jump. And then go out there and lead.